you might not be considering the 1060. And in this video, I'm going to show you why you might want to consider the 1060, the 1050 Ti, and cards like the 280X if you have access to them at the right price. Hello and welcome. My name is Seth Estrada, and obviously you're watching this on my YouTube channel. Quick overview of how to use this efficiency and dollar per hash calculator. This is a free resource that I've given to the crypto community. Now, you might think like, okay, well, aren't there sites like whattomine.com? Aren't there other ways for me to be able to look up efficiency rates and for me to look up profitability and ROI calculators? Yes, there are. Full disclosure, I made this because I wanted to flip the data in a different way. A lot of those profitability calculators and a lot of the other efficiency calculators don't give you all the data at a glance. So I wanted to create a table that made it simpler for you to figure out which card is best for you based on either initial purchase price or long-term cost to operate, if that makes sense. Your price per watt per hash. This is the data on this third tab here. And you've noticed at the very bottom, I put a disclaimer here. Please add consistent hash rates only. I'll get back to that. So yeah, a little bit of a teaser there. There's something more to this. But what I'll say is all of this data right here, where it says power minimum, power maximum, and then all of the hash rates for the different algos right here, algorithms. This is all data that I have borrowed from whattomine.com. Huge props to whattomine.com. They've collected a tremendously useful amount of information there. Let me scoot that over so you can see those numbers. But a tremendously useful collection of information there on mining numbers, hash rates, and efficiency rates on modern graphics cards. Now, when new graphics cards come out from NVIDIA, of course, I'm sure that table will be updated. But for right now, this is what's available on whattomine.com. And I think this probably represents what most people are mining on today. Some of these cards you might not even be mining on because they're hard to get new. So, for example, over here under GPUs, you might not be using the AMD R9 280X unless you already had some from a couple of years ago. So if you're getting into mining today, this might not be something that affects you, but you might be looking at, for example, the RX 580 by AMD or the Vega 56. Very good choices for mining on AMD. Or if you're looking at NVIDIA, you're certainly considering the 1080 Ti, and you're certainly considering the 1080 or 1070 Ti. You might not be considering the 1060. And in this video, I'm going to show you why you might want to consider the 1060, the 1050 Ti, and cards like the 280X if you have access to them at the right price. That said, let me show you the other tabs. Under dollar per hash, this takes the data from over here and puts it into formulas that allow you to figure out which GPU is the most cost-effective for getting started with a given algorithm. Now, if you're not familiar with mining algorithms, you're going to have to do a little bit of homework, but here's a brief overview. The mining algorithm just means that's the work, that's the cryptographic work that your GPU has to do in order to earn you coins or tokens for a given cryptocurrency. For example, you may have heard of Monero. You've probably heard of Monero. If you haven't heard of Monero, this probably isn't the right video for you. But Monero uses the crypto night algorithm right there. It's kind of, it's wrapped around. And if I were to sort for the crypto night algorithm, I think I already have A to Z. There you go. It resorts everything over here. It's going to reshuffle all of this data, right? All of it, so that it goes from most cost effective to least cost effective per hash when mining crypto night currencies. Pretty cool. But it turns out that because of the low cost of the R9 280X on AMD, that's actually a really good way to get started with crypto night mining. Now, let's go over to the data and see what it says. Right here under crypto night, the AMD 280X hashes at about 490 hashes per second on crypto night. Now, I can verify that that's true. I've mined crypto night algorithm or crypto night coins on the AMD R9 280X. So that's totally legit. You look at entry-level cards for NVIDIA, say the 1050 Ti or the 1060, and they don't mine quite as powerfully as the dude, I'm like totally choking on my own words. The 280X does. So the 280X is almost twice as prolific as the 750 Ti at nearly the same price. And at exactly the same price, the 1050 Ti doesn't touch what the 280X can do from AMD. At the exact same price, it mines more. So if you're looking at Monero or Bitcoin or Electroneum or Sumo Coin or any coin that uses the CryptoNight algorithm, then AMD is probably going to be a better way to go in terms of getting a really good upfront dollar per hash, right? This is how much money each hash costs you on CryptoNight when first starting. So that's one thing to consider. If you've got a really low budget and you can only afford maybe $250 per card or less right now, then the R9 280X might be the way to go for you if you're looking at CryptoNight coins. Now, if you're just on a nice hash where the algorithm is consistently being swapped out and you don't really know what is going to happen there, well, we'll address that also a little later on in the video. I've got this calculator can be very helpful for you in determining what you're going to mine. But let's go over to efficiency per watt. We saw dollar per hash that at the top of the stack for CryptoNight is the R9 280X. But if I go to efficiency per watt, and also I sort right here by CryptoNight, sorting sheet A to Z, wow, the story really changes. At the top of the list is the Vega 56. The Vega 56 by AMD is the current CryptoNight hashing king. It is just extremely powerful. The hash rate is so high. Let's go over to the data to see what that means. Right here, the Vega 56 under CryptoNight, 1,850 hashes per second. And it does it at a power consumption, an average power consumption of less than the Vega 64. So at the same hash rate, the Vega 56 can do it consuming less electricity. So it's much more efficient. But in a close second place is the Vega 64. It's not a bad card. But the Vega 56 is more efficient at mining CryptoNight coins. And that's shown right here on the efficiency per watt tab. And right here, yeah, for CryptoNight, Vega 56 is the way to go. But you look at the price, and it's $1,300 per card, current sort of market price. I don't know that the Vega 64 is definitively $1,800, but I have seen it listed for $1,800, and I have seen people pay $1,800. So consider that that's a market reality right now, whether or not you're willing to pay that. Now, if anything changes here while I'm doing the video, consider there are a bunch of other people who are watching this spreadsheet. This one is open for you to take a look at and for you to sort and filter all of this data so that it is useful for you, useful to you, and helps you make better decisions about this. But yeah, so with CryptoNight, Vega 56 is the most efficient card today. But when you're looking at NVIDIA cards, the GTX 1060 is the most efficient of the NVIDIA cards for CryptoNight cards. Kind of counterintuitive, I know, but here's why. Let's go back to the data. Over here, the 1060 is known to run at a minimum power of 80 watts and a maximum power of around 90. This is based on data from whattomine.com. So the average power consumption for it is about 85 watts. Now, given the hash rate that it has across the board, that makes it a fairly efficient card consistently for a lot of algorithms. You remember before in the video, I mentioned to you, you might be looking at the 1080 Ti and the 1070 Ti. You might not be looking at the 1060, but I'm here to tell you that professional mining operations do look at the 1060 because of its efficiency, not its raw hashing power. That efficiency, and here's why that matters. That efficiency right here, looking at this chart, well, we'll use the AMD cards as an example again. While the 280X might be the cheapest way for you to start hashing CryptoNight at a solid rate, in the long haul, it's less efficient. It's at the bottom of the stack because it consumes more electricity than most of the other cards, given the hash rate that it has for that algorithm. Does that make sense? So on CryptoNight, even though it's the cheapest way to get started by mining CryptoNight to get a lot of hashes for your dollar, in the long haul, you'll spend more per hash on electricity than you would for almost any other card. almost any other card will save you money in the long run. So I'm talking about 8, 10, 12, 18, 24 months. These other cards will save you money, if that makes sense. So think of the dollars per hash as being your 3 to 6 month business plan, and the efficiency per watt being your 6 month to 2 year business plan. Most businesses amortize their equipment over, at least in video production, which is kind of my background, amortize their equipment over 2 to 3 years. If you're unfamiliar with that term, that just means that they consider that the useful life of a piece of equipment is only going to be about 2 or 3 years. After that point, it's a write-off, right? They're going to sell it or they're going to get rid of it. They're going to retire that equipment somehow. So if you consider that these cards are only going to run for maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, then consider that the long-term operating costs of those cards should be a factor when making the decision of what to purchase. All right, guys, that's this spreadsheet in a nutshell. Let me do a couple of other examples just so you can see what I mean here. Help make this more concrete, because the only example that I've used so far puts AMD cards in a really good light. I think I do you a disservice if I only mention AMD cards as being really powerful, because while they're obviously not the only game in town. A lot of people are mining with NVIDIA cards and making good money mining with NVIDIA cards. Here's how. Let's go back over to the data. You see that for some algorithms, Skunk Hash is a really good example. For some algorithms, NVIDIA cards have hash rates that there is no equivalent for in AMD land. The same is true for Lyra 2 Rev 2. The best hash rates, which is kind of counterintuitively, the R9 280X, which is an old discontinued card, and the R9 Fury, they hash at a higher rate than the current generation cards for this algorithm. Kind of weird, I know, but as card architectures change, then their ability to handle certain algorithms efficiently and powerfully changes too. And with AMD, the top hashing rate is just over 14,000 kilohashes per second. Down in NVIDIA, you'll notice that hash rate is bested by the 1050 Ti. A $250 card is better than a card at any price from AMD. Think about that. $1,800 card will not outperform a $250 card. You can get almost 8 of these for the price of one of these, and one of these already outperforms one of these. So for the money, you can do 8 times as well. At least 7. I'm sorry, right there within the number given. You can do at least 7 times the hashing for that number by getting 7 of these. So this is important. You have to look at the data. You've got to consider what you could be mining or what you want to mine as you're making this purchase decision. So that's just with the 1050 Ti. Now let's level the playing field. Let's look at something that's kind of more in line. The Vega 56 right now, today, if you look for it on Amazon or on eBay, you're going to find that there's a pretty good price parity between the Vega 56 and the NVIDIA 1080 Ti. So let's compare those hash rates on a different algorithm. Lyra 2 Rev 2. 13,000 for the Vega 56, and then on the 1080 Ti, 64,000. Again, more than 4 times the hash rate for the same price. But for the money, you can get 5 times the hash rate by going with the 1050 Ti. Kind of weird. I know this kind of makes the decision a lot more difficult looking at this data, but that's why I want to use over here these tabs that interpret that data and give us a better idea of what is best in each category. So let's use right here, Lyra 2. Let's sort for efficiency, because now we'll get a sense for how well it hashes for its power consumption, right? So sorting A to Z. Whoa! Now a new side of this story comes out. A new facet to this part of the conversation, to this little gem comes out. The 1080 Ti is actually the most efficient in the long haul. That is to say, the hash rate versus the power consumption for long-term mining is better with the 1080 Ti than it is for any other card. And for really any NVIDIA card is going to be better for mining Lyra 2 Rev 2 than any AMD card. At any price, it will be more efficient in the long haul. So consider that if you're interested in coins that use the Lyra 2 Rev 2 algorithm, then you might strongly consider getting NVIDIA. In the same way that if you're looking at Kryptonite, remember, you might strongly consider just looking at AMD. That might be a better way to go in terms of long-term efficiency in mining operations. So large-scale mining farms. Now let's look at a couple of algorithms that are a little bit more profitable today and that are generating a lot more interest today. We'll look at NeoScript, Equihash, and Ethash, because Ethash, at least mining Ether, if we go to proof of stake sooner than later, well, then this info will not be as relevant. But for today, while Ether or Ethereum is still proof of work, this matters. A lot of people are mining with Ethash, which is one algorithm that's used to mine Ether, a very important one at that. So let's start with NeoScript and then make our way over in this list, an efficiency per watt. So with NeoScript, I'm going to sort right there, A to Z. Again, different story. Price per watt per hash, rather watt per hash, is in favor of the 1070 Ti, or hashes per watt. Really, it's the same measurement, but flipped in a different way. So that efficiency works no matter which way you do the equation. You want to have the highest efficiency there. And the 1070 Ti is today the most efficient NeoScript mining card. NeoScript is pretty important, and occasionally, if you're just selling raw hash power on, say, NiceHash or MinerGate, for example, then you're going to get far better returns on the 1070 Ti long term. But in dollar per hash, just to get started with NeoScript, again, we'll sort for that here. The 280X, maybe it pops up again, the R9 280X, and then the NVIDIA 1050 Ti. They're low-cost cards that mine NeoScript well enough. Well enough. Over here, let's take a look at that. So hash rate on the 280X is significant for AMD cards. It almost jumps over to the R9 Fury. It almost doesn't make sense to mine NeoScript on the R9 380 because the hash rate dips. It goes lower for certain algorithms, including, Libri as well. But right there, the 280X for the cost, hard to beat because for the price of an R9 Fury, you can have two 280Xs and double the hash rate, right? And then down with NVIDIA, pardon, I had to cough there, apologies. But down here on NVIDIA, we saw in the, getting started, the 1050 Ti, that's a bit of a surprise, right? But for NeoScript, the hash rate is not that much lower than the 280X, and the price is the same. So in terms of just getting started, the dollar per hash, really hard to beat on these two cards. And you can get a couple of them and just get started. Start hashing, start making money today. And it will earn you money today. All of these cards will earn you some money. None of them will mine in the negative, except, well, we'll get those exceptions in just a minute and get back to that. So that's NeoScript. Interesting story there, right? Dollar per hash. There's basically no bad card to start mining NeoScript. But there are some cards that you can get started with multiples of today if you have a lower budget. Say you've got less than $2,000 to build a rig with multiple cards in it. You can start mining with any of them on NeoScript and be profitable today. But price per watt, if you want long-term efficiency and you're really serious about building a mining farm, you do yourself a disservice if you're not looking at the 1070 Ti, 1070, and as you see right there, sorted down the list, NVIDIA cards first on NeoScript. All right, so that's NeoScript in a nutshell. Let's look at Equihash really fast. I'm going to sort for Equihash. Boom. Same story. NVIDIA is the hashing king on Equihash. That said, top of the stack for AMD, if you are an AMD loyalist or you have AMD cards already, is the RX 580. Then the R9 Fury. Kind of a surprise there. And then the Vega 56 in terms of long-term efficiency per watt. That said, I'll come back to why the RX 580 is top of the stack there. There's a reason. There's a reason in efficiency per watt. And it was a bit of a surprise to me when I threw this data together. I mentioned that the data was originally put together based on values that I got from whattomine.com. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Let me sort for dollar per hash on Equihash as well, so we can get a sense for how you can get started today. Again, R9280X, great card to go with. It mines Equihash well enough that it's profitable. So go over here to the data to see what it says. Equihash, not a super high hash rate, but higher than the R9 380. It's 290 hashes per second. And then you look at it across the board, there are definitely cards that hash at a higher rate. So you look at the efficiency per watt, there's a reason that the 280X is very low on Equihash. So for long-term mining, the 280X, probably not the best way to go to stay competitive in the long haul. But if you have them, not a bad way to start. If you're serious about mining, though, and you're starting from scratch, look at NVIDIA for Equihash. Now, what is a popular Equihash coin? One that's been very popular and profitable lately has been Z Classic. Because of an upcoming fork, Z Classic will, it's profitable every day today, and when it forks, that investment, that time spent mining will double in value. So, great way to go. But also Bitcoin Gold. There are some others as well. ZEC, Zen, so Zcash, Zencash, and then a few other Z-based coins or ZEC miners. They all use the same mining software, right? For mining Zencash. And that's Equihash in a nutshell. Pardonnez-moi. Got the coughs. So Equihash, very important algorithm right now because people are seeing that there's sort of a potential end of the line for Ethash in terms of at least mining Ethereum. So Equihash has been an extremely popular algorithm, and it's been one that is a little bit more resistant to ASIC mining. And so that's very popular in the mining community. If you're just getting started, of course, this would be news to you. If you've been mining for a while, obviously, none of this is news to you. You probably already have a calculator like this. If you don't, we'll talk about in a minute how you can help this calculator get better. But let's talk about Ethash as well. So Equihash, we know that efficiency per watt, long-term mining operations, you really should be looking at NVIDIA or you're doing yourself a disservice. Dollar per hash, it's really, there's no bad card, right? No bad card to start mining Equihash today. But let's go back over to the efficiency per watt and let's sort for Ethash, A to Z. All right. Hey, look at this. Surprise, surprise. The NVIDIA 1060, the GTX 1060 is an extremely efficient card for Ethash, for mining Ethereum. And it has been since it was initially released. And large-scale mining operations know this. So if you're only mining with like 4 or 5 cards, I think you can be forgiven for not wanting to get just GTX 1060s. But if you are looking at a fleet of 50, 100, 200, 1,000 cards under one roof, really you should be seriously considering the implications of this efficiency. The 1080 or the 1060 is a really efficient card. And when mining Ether, the 1080 is a very not efficient card. The 1080 Ti, the 1070 Ti, there'll be better options. But even at that, the 1070 Ti, far better than the 1080 Ti. And far better than both, the 1060. I know, crazy. We'll talk about why that is in just a minute here. But briefly, before we move on, at the bare minimum, efficiency has to do a lot more with power consumption. So I'll jump over here, the 1060 right there. Power consumption, the average is 85 watts. Talked about it before. It's worth mentioning again. When the average is under 100 watts, you can stuff more cards into a single rig with the same size power supply. And you don't have to worry about heating in quite the same way, or cooling rather, per card. You don't have to have really overbuilt heat sinks and fans per card. So that efficiency really helps with day-to-day operations of a large-scale mining farm. But let's go to dollars per hash on Ethash and see what happens when we sort for that. A to Z, the 1050 Ti. That's the cheapest way to jump into the game today. Per hash, you're going to spend less up front buying a fleet of 1050 Ti's. Now, going over to the data, the hash rate, not great on the 1050 Ti, but it's not terrible, right? It's not terrible. You figure, let's see, what is approximately double here? Let's say the 1070 is double the hash rate, and it's quadruple the cost. If I were to, for $1,000, buy 4 1050 Ti's, I get a better hash rate than any of the NVIDIA cards that are over $1,000. The 1050 Ti is the cheapest way to mine a lot of Ether, if that makes sense. Now, the efficiency per watt, let's jump back over there and see how it fares there. The 1050 Ti, well, it's middle of the pack. So it's kind of neither here nor there. It's not super efficient, but it's not as inefficient as the current bleeding edge in AMD cards, right? The Vega 56 and the Vega 64 are not as efficient for mining Ether as the 1050 Ti is. So if you're looking at a large scale operation and you can get your hands on, a truckload of 1050 Ti's, then it would be worth considering. It really would be. You don't have to have the current gen 1080 Ti or the 1070 Ti to be efficient enough on the 1050 Ti that it's worth doing the initial investment. Does that make sense? You'll ROI faster on this card because the cost of electricity will not outpace the cost of recouping your initial investment. All right, guys, we flipped the data 3 different ways. We've looked at the overall data right here. Now, this brings me to my ask. I have to ask something of you, and you've got a lot of people here who are looking at this spreadsheet live. You might be wondering, how can I look at this live? There is a link in the description. This is a free resource. And here's what I ask of you. Just make it a great community resource. That's all I'm asking. Literally all I'm asking. Here on the data page, here's how you can help. If you own one of these cards, let's just say that you own a 1080 Ti or you own multiple 1080 Ti's in a mining rig, or you have a small farm with over 100 units of the 1080 Ti. The more data you have, the better is what I'm saying. The more consistent data you have, the better it helps us. If you know that you're mining at a lower minimum power than 140 watts on the 1080 Ti, then please edit your power minimum here. Now, the maximum power consumption, you're going to see me do something that might look kind of weird, but I'm going to protect that range right now. Locked, it says. That's being set. Oh, and I'm sorry, that person is not going to have editing permission there. I don't know how they got editing permission in the first place. They shouldn't have it, which is, kind of weird. But right here, we've got a couple of things that are locked down. Don't edit the power maximum. If you're new to mining, let me explain something to you that's very important. When it comes to power consumption, the average power consumption is a function of just figuring out what the maximum possible power consumption is and the minimum possible power consumption, and then getting an average, right? It's very simple math. Over here, here's the formula, right? The formula is just both of those values added together divided by 2. That's how I'm getting that. There might be a better way to do it, but because there are so many algorithms, here's the other part of it. A given card is only so efficient on a given algorithm. Case in point, we saw how for Crypto Night, nothing beats the Vega 56 in terms of long-term efficiency, but its average power consumption is pretty high. It's a pretty high consumer of electricity. So on Crypto Night, it looks great for efficiency, but with Equihash, not so much. The hash rate is fairly low for how much power it's consuming. Not only that, the way that these cards are designed, their architecture, makes it so that AMD cards in general don't consume very high amounts of power and electricity when mining Crypto Night. It's not a very taxing algorithm. It's true for many of the cards. Not a very taxing algorithm. So on the RX 580, I got data from another user that they're getting power consumption of 85 watts when mining Crypto Night. Now, are they getting ultra high hash rates like on the Vega 56? No, they're not. But they're getting an ultra low power consumption by using some optimization and some tweaks. So that's on Crypto Night. But when you go over to Equihash, mentioned before, this is a very important algorithm right now in GPU mining. When you go over to Equihash, the story changes. Power consumption rates skyrocket on AMD. They go way up. So this maximum power consumption figure you can come a lot closer to scraping that ceiling right there when mining Equihash and some other algorithms as well. They're very taxing on these cards is what I'm saying. So while you may say, oh, well, I've got 85 watts power consumption, that's probably true for one algorithm on one card. that might not be true for every algorithm that you could mine. So that's my word on power consumption. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I've locked down the power maximum field for that reason. But if you know you're getting a better lowest minimum power consumption because of some sort of BIOS flashing or optimization tweak that you've used, maybe you're using MSI Afterburner and some other optimization hacks that you know, then feel free to change that power minimum there. And what that's going to do is adjust the average power consumption over in this field. And that is how all of the other, or at least the efficiency, that's how it is calculated, is comparing the average power consumption to the hash rate. Make sense? And the reason I'm using the average is because it would take a lot more calculation. I'd have to be better at creating databases if you wanted me to figure out like, well, I do only get 85 watts when I'm doing Kryptonite. So can't you just compare those two numbers and show me my efficiency per watt using my minimum power consumption? Well, we'd have to have a lot more data. I mean, that's just the bottom line. We'd have to have a lot more data to compare from, and we'd have to use more formulas. We could do it, but today, this is how it works. It's a level playing field because every card and every algorithm is being compared to the average power consumption of each card. Make sense? Okay. I thought it did, and that's why I made this spreadsheet the way that I did, because it gives us a bird's eye view, a really objective, fair playing field for all the cards to see how they fare. Now, that said, a word on Skunk Hash. Skunk Hash over here, there are a few cards that actually don't mine Skunk Hash at all. So on whattomine.com, they're listed as 0. The reason that I have, 0.0000001, it's this really, really low number. The reason I have that listed there is because I can't just put 0. Otherwise, I would get a divide error on the formulas over here. So let's go ahead and sort for Skunk Hash just for kicks and giggles right here. Bottom of the stack in terms of efficiency in mining Skunk Hash is the R9 Fury. You would literally pay $6 billion per mega hash on Skunk Hash if you wanted to go with the R9 Fury. Basically, because it will never mine Skunk Hash. So really don't waste your time. And just for kicks, let's go over to efficiency per watt. And efficiency per watt, you would consume a heck of a lot of electricity trying to mine Skunk Hash on these cards. So in either case, dollar per hash, you'd have to literally buy every single one of the 750 Ti's, R9 280X's, and R9 Furies in the entire world supply. You'd have to buy all of them in existence in order to mine Skunk Hash, according to my calculations here. And you would have to use all of the electricity of the entire world's population, because they don't really mine them at all. Okay, guys, that's it for kicks and giggles. If you have numbers here, either lowest power consumed on a given card, go ahead and feel free to add that. You don't have to tell us the settings that you used to achieve that. Just add your lowest power consumption for a card that you have solid data on. If you have an array of 8 or 10 or 100 of these, then your data is going to be more reliable than a miner that only has 1 or 2, because you've been able to reproduce that result consistently. Same with hash rates. If you know that you're getting a better hash rate on Equihash or Kryptonite, any of them, Blake, Libri, Pascal, Ethash especially, but especially Ethash, Kryptonite, Equihash, Lyra2, Neoscript. These are extremely popular algorithms, and there are a lot of coins that people really want to see succeed with these algorithms. Feel free to change those numbers. It's openly editable for anybody who has the link, and you can see the link in the description below. So that's how you can help. You may notice that over time, that links over here on the cards change. Today, if you want to follow me on Facebook, or if you want to just say hello and reach out over there, you can go and connect with me there or follow me there on Facebook. I put out regular content as a consultant on a variety of topics on a regular basis. So you can follow me there, or you can follow me here on YouTube, either one. Please hit the subscribe button. Make sure that when you do, you ring the bell so that you are notified when I do another upload here. And I will talk to you in a future video. Keep mining, guys. Stay profitable. Don't spend too much. And remember, decentralize, decentralize, decentralize. Always use a new pool when you're trying out a new algorithm, and switch things up frequently. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for hitting the bell. Love your face, and I'll see you in the next one.